it's all about, we've got a elephant logo as our kind of inspiration. The name Batyr comes from an elephant in Kazakhstan that could speak a bunch of phrases in Russian, and we're about giving a voice to the elephant in the room. So that's something that we can play around with, try to be positive and colourful and playful, and it seems to get some good reactions from young people.
Hi guys. This podcast explores the importance of our connection, well-being, and mental health. To reason with someone is to motivate them to do or accept topics, ideas, and issues through discussion and having conversations. This podcast is for those that want to raise their awareness, change their perspective, or just have a good time. My vision is to help people find reason to live, to grow, and to understand. I do that through this podcast, as well as counselling individuals that want to help themselves.
No, he needs to know.
I just think he's gonna talk and it's gonna make a lot of sense.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
One man, one podcast. 3, 2, 1.
Reason With Me Podcast, episode 19.
It's time!
Welcome back to the podcast. We are almost halfway through season 4. Don't know how many more seasons I got left in me, but the guests just keep on coming, which is so exciting. Means I can keep doing these podcasts and these guest interviews with them. So let's get cracking into it and introduce the guest for today. Nick Brown is the CEO at Batyr. Nick has spent most of his career in not-for-profit organisations as well as in state and local governments. Working with young people in Australia and overseas has been the main focus in each of these roles. In 2015, he began work at Batyr as the school program manager in the early stages of Batyr's growth. After implementing processes and structures to ensure a scalable and safe rollout of Batyr at school, he applied the same approach to all of Batyr's programs as the National Program Manager. In 2017, he moved into the role of General Manager before taking on the role of CEO in 2019, where he continues to support Batyr's growth and reach towards smashing the stigma around mental health and empowering young people to create a mentally healthy Australia. Nick also believes in maintaining positivity through adversity and in values driving organisational and leadership decision-making. Nick is so down to earth as a CEO and is such a refreshing and nice insight into, coming through the ranks to be into the position that you are by being face-to-face and now being being a leader, I guess, in the organisations, and especially in an important space like mental health, and even more importantly for our young people. So here we go. Let's do it.
All right, Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jackson. Good to chat to you.
So, look, let's jump straight in, Nick. Tell me, who the hell are you and what do you do?
That's a good question. I'm Nick Brown. I'm the CEO at Batyr. So we're a youth mental health organisation, all about smashing the stigma around mental health, getting young people to reach out for support, trying to just change the way we talk about mental health. It's something we all have. And so we want to make sure that's something we can all kind of talk about much easier and understand where to get support, how to be a good mate, how to look after ourselves, all that kind of stuff. So, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
And I mean, it's hard not to have known about Batyr now. I think it's been so well pushed around Australia for people to get in touch, and especially our youth. It's sort of getting more and more popular, and it's like mental health is cool now in some of our youth, which is such a good thing. And I think you guys have really paved the way for that to happen as well.
Oh, thanks. That's nice of you to say. Yeah, I think we try to just take a bit of a different approach, mainly because of our objective. You know, we're not a clinical service provider, and so we're able to, have a broader conversation with the community and with young people around what mental health is. It's not our conversation is not necessarily just for those that need to get professional support. You know, when they're feeling really down, it's about all of us kind of playing a role in looking after ourselves and each other, and trying to have a preventative kind of approach to that, and then pointing to services when people need to access those. So, yeah, I mean, it's all about, we've got a elephant logo as our kind of inspiration. The name Batyr comes from an elephant in Kazakhstan that could speak a bunch of phrases in Russian, and we're about giving a voice to the elephant in the room. So that's something that we can play around with, try to be positive and colourful and playful, and yeah, it seems to get some good reactions from young people.
I love that. I love that it's a Kazakhstan elephant that could speak a few things. It's like
It's a bit of a tough one to say, and so it's nice that you've said people have seen us around, but yeah, it's definitely, until you kind of know who we are. I don't know many people that have nailed it on the first go. I don't even know if we say it right, to be honest, but that's what we are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely was like, okay, you got Nick Brown coming on. You've got to figure out how the hell to say it.
You did well.
I was seeing it for so long, and I'm like, I know, you know what? Whoever's listening to this podcast, I feel like questions just got answered. Like, what the hell does it mean, firstly, and how the hell do you say it, and why is it an elephant? And now, in the first 2 minutes, you've answered all these questions. Cool, everyone can go now.
Yeah, that's it. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Oh.
No, I try to get to it early, because it's usually one of the first questions. Where did it all come from? But it was actually so our founder, Seb Robertson, when he was setting up Batyr, he was looking for something to call it, and felt like that was kind of good inspiration and something we could have a bit of fun with, but also also draws attention to the issue that we're facing around stigma and mental health. I think we've come a long way, but still definitely a bit of an elephant in the room. But it's also, it's not, the name isn't attached to anything specific around mental health in terms of being the elephant. Sometimes we get confused with being like in elephant conservation or something, but it means, we can sort of reach audiences that otherwise aren't engaged in mental health. It's not, it's not something that they would associate with the mind or the brain or mental health, like a lot of other kind of mental health organizations would align their names to. And so, I think it's worked. I think it's worked well.
Yeah, and I stalked your LinkedIn pretty well. You've sort of your own story. You've sort of climbed through as it's developed as well. Can you tell us a little bit about, I guess, your journey through Batyr?
Yeah. I mean, before I started at Batyr, most of the work that I'd been doing was with young people. I was running school camps and holiday camps, and did some work over in Nauru in offshore processing centres over there. That was a sort of a recreation support worker role, and so that was a bit of a mix between my passion for welfare and caring for people and sport. And I love that. It was a really hard sort of environment to be in, and for the people that were over there in that environment. But I was lucky enough to be in a role that provided some respite and saw the impact that had on their mental health. So when I started at Batyr, I was looking after the school programs, and there was probably only 6 of us in terms of permanent staff at the organisation. And then as we've grown, I've sort of just tried to challenge myself, but also try and push the organisation forward with everyone else there. And as the needs have kind of come up, I've stepped into different roles. So I was the national programs manager for a while, and then general manager before jumping into this role in October. So been at Batyr for about 5.5 years now, and there's about 50 permanent staff now. We've got about 170 or so speakers that share their stories at our programs, and 20 or so casual facilitators that deliver all of the content. So it's turned into a bit more of a beast now.
Yeah. That's so cool. And I think I love that. And I think the nice part, I mean, I had Kathy Kesselman from Blue Knot Foundation on that launched, I think, last week. But I like the type of CEO or founder or whatever that sort of can say that they've done a lot of the work as well, and have been right up in it and right next to it as well, and seeing what's happening. And think the fact that you're running the programs, but then on top of that, being it somewhere as hectic as Nauru, I think that brings such a different perspective to what a lot of other potential CEOs who don't have that face-to-face contact can bring. So I guess on that, Nick, like where do you pull your strength to do that sort of stuff? Like where do you pull your strength to continue to do the work that you do and provide, I imagine, quite a lot of guidance and support and leadership to everybody around you?
Yeah, I mean, it's through doing that, I think. It's through those times. So I still try and, I'll go and facilitate. We do a Being Heard program, which is training people to share their experiences around mental health. And I'll try and facilitate 1 or 2 of those a year. Still, even though I don't get the chance to kind of get in and do that, I'll still go and see programs or be involved in delivering some of the content here and there. And I think, being a smaller sort of team and in the office, our facilitators and speakers will come through and we, get around them as they head off to programs. And I think all of that kind of connecting to what we do, speaking to people, like staying in touch with young people is what I love. And so, to be honest, like moving into the CEO roles in some ways doesn't necessarily feel like, the natural role for me. I love it now, and I feel like I'm finding my feet and kind of leaning into how I need to be spending my time. But yeah, I think I'll always want to kind of make sure that I'm chatting to the team, staying really close to them and their what's going on for them in terms of delivering the programs or in terms of just their day-to-day job. And then also out at programs, seeing school and university students, hearing people share their stories. Like every time I hear someone share their experience at one of our speakers, it's just, it blows my mind, like these are young people that are, have gone through tough stuff and are willing to stand in front of 150 year 9 students and share some of the, toughest times of their lives, just so that other people are better equipped to navigate those times. And, I just got a huge amount of respect for that. And so anytime I get an opportunity to hear those experiences, it just drives me.
Yeah. And I think that, it sort of shines through in the way that you even just communicate about it. Like it's obviously that, I think you said you have a passion for welfare, but then I guess seeing it in action and seeing it in its vulnerability as well is pretty powerful. So I guess that sort of leans into really the crux of what I wanted to talk to you about, Nick, is if you just sort of reason with me, how do these programs bring us such connection, mental health and well-being within the community?
Yeah, it's a good question because we take a little bit of a different approach, I think. But it's all about the stories. It's all about the stories, and it's all about meeting people where they're at and having a conversation with them on their level. And I think, that kind of sounds cliche, but if I can try and break it down, I think it makes a bit more sense. So the speaker side of it is there's some research that was done in the States around the best way to reduce stigma. We know that stigma is a barrier to help seeking. Only about 20% of people that need to access support are getting the support that they need. So there's a huge amount of people not getting support. And we know that stigma is a major barrier to that. And so there's the research around the importance of sharing lived experience. So if we can get, and there's some elements to it that need to happen around the person being credible, relatable, from a similar area. The relatability piece is really important. So when we go into a high school, we try and find young people to share their stories that are best going to relate to that cohort. And so it's just, someone like them speaking to them about real life stuff, and it hits home. It creates empathy, it creates understanding, it gives people permission to reach out for support themselves. It makes people realize that they're not alone. It's just an amazing, that vulnerability and authenticity is just an amazing tool to open up other people's potential to do the same. And then the other piece that we put alongside that is our facilitators, who are also relatable to the groups that we're speaking to. And and it's more about a conversation. So we try and change up the way that we're delivering the content. So it's not like a lesson or a lecture, and it's more of just a conversation about how you talk about so many other topics. So instead of it always feeling like a topic that is really serious and it's all about kind of learning all of these different things and complicated, we just try and simplify it all and just have a conversation. And that seems to really, really cut through, particularly with young people. So I think those two elements are really critical.
I love it's one of my favorite phrases is permission, and you mentioned that you're giving people permission to be able to go and step into that for themselves if that's what they're willing to do, and sort of face that I'm not alone, or face that, I can actually do something about this. And I think that you're creating like in such an empowering way, and that brings people together at the end of the day. And I guess so what have been some of the like results? I mean, you running the programs, you'd be hearing and probably debriefing with a lot of the facilitators and presenters about what happens after these talks.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that we try to measure, and we do sort of internal evaluation. So after every program, we run a survey. There's a few different things that we're looking at, but two of the big ones are around engagement. So were the students engaged in this conversation? And we have a benchmark for what we want to hit there. And the reason that that's important to us is because part of our objective, again, is for us to feel like we're reducing stigma and to be cutting through to this cohort. They need to enjoy it and they need to feel like they're into it. And so that's a really important one. And then attitudes towards help seeking is the other one that we measure. So would you be more likely to seek help after seeing this program? And we see around 75% of people say yes, and pretty much everyone else says maybe. Very rarely we see people saying that they're not more likely. So, that's a really encouraging one for us when we know that the kind of national help seeking rates at about 25%. And so that, we're seeing some really good results around, attitudes or intentions to seek help. And then we've done some other research projects, randomized controlled trials with pre, post and follow-up that maintain some results around reduction in stigma and attitudes towards help seeking. But we did some interesting research last year with a group of young people that have had experiences of mental ill health to try and identify shared themes and experiences. So we looked at 83 stories to find shared themes and stories. And some of the stuff that we saw through that research project was really interesting around what was it that changed the way young people access support, or what did they reflect on as the things that were so important in their journey. And one of those things that stood out to me was around this idea of an anchor person, or someone that was there for them through the ups and downs. And I think it's such an important message, because so many of us feel like if someone reaches out to us, we don't know what we can do. We don't know, we're not necessarily a professional, or we don't know how to help them, but or we feel like we're not helping them. And we found through this research that actually those people are so critical, because at some point when the person is ready, they look back and feel like that was just a rock that was able to help them through that journey. So we're trying to do a bit of that kind of thing, where we can look at actually what young people are saying about accessing support and mental health, and share some of those learnings along with how we can use it to sort of improve and inform the way that we do our programs.
And I mean, I think I've been reading that you guys have, and it's some of the fundraising and stuff you've been doing, it's been global. There's been a lot of reach that you guys have been able to do through Instagram and stuff like that. That's actually having a big impact globally, which is huge. Like that's so awesome. But just in terms of Australia, like you guys are going to schools nationwide?
Yeah. So up and down the East Coast, pretty much. So we're not in Tassie, WA or Northern Territory yet. although we're now doing online programs because of everything that's been going on, the team have done an awesome job to just shift and work out how we can engage young people online, which is new to us, but obviously we have that kind of background in creating engaging content for young people, and we've seen some really good results from that. So can actually access a lot of those other states now, but we've got people on the ground in every other state. But yeah, the global stuff's been really exciting. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done in Australia, and so there's not an intention for us to kind of feel like we need to go and take over the world with our programs, but there is something unique that we do that is work that we want to share globally, and there's lots for us to learn globally. You know, there's so much for us to learn from Australia and experts and researchers and academics and other organisations doing great work here in Australia. But if we're really going to sort of shift the dial, then we need to just open up what's available to young people, what's working around the world, what's not working. How can sharing stories help? How can we get a diverse as possible range of stories to share, to learn from? And so, yeah, we'll probably lean into that a little bit more and do more with some partners in other countries. We've done some work with Jack.org in Canada and Kelly Group in Hong Kong and Student Minds in the UK. So there's some really cool stuff that we've done over the years, and keen to do a little bit more of that as we go.
Yeah, I think the sky's the limit for this sort of stuff, because at the end of the day, I mean, I work with a lot of adults, but I work with a lot of children. And by the time I work with, I guess I'd work with a more traumatized percentage of the population. And by the time they get to me, there's so many things that I guess didn't happen for them when they were younger, and they didn't have the opportunities, they didn't have the abilities, or for whatever reason, their trauma prevented, access to stuff. And the work is with our young people. We need to be focusing purely on getting that education up and running by itself, not just to help those that are in need, but like you're saying, educate everybody else to then stand together to help those that are in need. And you guys,
for sure.
Yeah.
And like you said, to learn how to look after ourselves as well. I think it's one thing is being there for each other, but one thing the other is learning those skills that we can, which you'd be a huge part of in people's lives. People like yourself, those support networks that are available for young people are just so critical, and they're so grateful for. I think one thing to say around that accessing support though is that it doesn't always happen the first go. I'm sure you've found, I'll be interested to know, if there's those times that there's just not quite that connection, and someone needs to go find someone else, or has come to you after not finding the right fit. I think that's a really important thing for us to encourage as well, that if you reach out for support and you don't quite find that it's the right thing for you, that doesn't mean it's the end of the opportunity to get support. I don't know. Have you seen that happen?
I mean, I'm hoping that I'm not that person. Like the next person's going, "Oh, I had this terrible counselor last time." But for majority,
it's not always it's not necessarily always like a bad experience. It's just that connection. Yeah.
But yeah, I think, that's definitely something that a lot of people come in, and it prevented them for many years to come back. And I think that, what I always say is you're about to pay money to go and see if you can get help, just like you would to all of your physical health. So, if that's the case, cool. Call them before, try and find out, am I actually going to get along with these people? Because at the end of the day, I don't get along with every single person on the planet. So if I'm going to start telling and being vulnerable with this person, I need to figure out if they're going to be right for me. So, most counselors, I would hope, are open to that sort of thing, to be able to have a chat to see if they tick some of the boxes and feel a little bit comfortable before they even go into session. And that at the end of the day, I think is so important, to be able to know that there are a lot of access out there for you to return back and sort of say, this is what's been my experience. Can you help me not make that the same? And unless you tell me, maybe I won't be able to know how I'm going to best support you. So I think that's a really important message as well to be able to share.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the the beauty of you guys' program is that it's making kids talk about stuff once you've left. And I mean, that stuff's a bit harder to measure, but you know, I think it's really important that there's that happening. Like as soon as that's done, it's sort of like, Robin Williams sort of dying in the, by suicide, but created a massive, outcry of all this people talking about it. But now we've got things like that have come off the back of a lot of different, I guess, outcries of media that are now actually creating it in a much positive way, a much more common stance. And I guess especially in the rural communities as well. You guys are doing quite a lot into rural schools, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, you've been keeping an eye on us, haven't you?
The most research I've done for a guest, to be honest.
Love it. We have. I mean, I'm from the mid-north coast of New South Wales, so it's personally like a big passion of mine to support regional communities. I think sometimes just the nature of being, in areas with smaller populations or less services, or different kind of industries, like all of that, impacts our mental health. And when I grew up, the way that I spoke about mental health is very different to what I've learned and how I speak about it now. So yeah, it's personally a passion of mine, but it's been a big focus of Batyr pretty much from the start. So early days, Cobar, which is a small community out in far west New South Wales. A couple of the community members there reached out to Batyr after a number of suicides and asked, if there was some stuff that we could do. And like I said, our focus isn't around the clinical service end. And so we went out there and ran a forum to kind of better understand if there was a role we could play. And been working in the school out there for a while now. I've done some stuff with the businesses and the local mines. And that's just been awesome for us to learn that how passionate communities are in doing something about it, and often just need some ideas or a platform to really get around each other and support each other and know that there is stuff that individuals can do in those communities. So similar thing in Tamworth. And then more recently we've been doing tours with New South Wales Rugby, delivering mental health advocacy training with rugby clubs, alongside the Waratahs and the Positive Rugby Foundation, doing physical wellness and rugby skills training. So that's been a really cool partnership to be a way to access regional communities. And then there's a bunch of other awesome communities been working with, like at Orange, and a few others around the place.
So good. So I guess that the question that comes up for me is it about the communities, having this advocacy and then reaching out to your sort of service, and that's how it works, and then you go, yep, we can do that, we'll come over? Or does it work in the other way around, like you sort of identifying which schools are in which regions and then sort of going in and offering? How does it work in that way, or is it a bit of both?
Yeah, a bit of both. In terms of regional communities, I think something that's really important is not going in thinking we have all of the answers. So often in those communities, it's more people coming to us, and then and if we can find the resourcing or funding, or if the community sort of does some fundraising or whatever, we'll go and do some work with them and work out where or how we can help. But we also do a lot of calling of schools and just checking in to see if there's stuff we can do with them around the country as well. So it's a bit of both. Sometimes we've done a little bit with the government now. They'll identify kind of risk areas. So we're doing some work in really drought-affected communities at the moment with the New South Wales government, and so sometimes they'll flag some regions that they would like some extra support in, and so then we'll work with those communities and those schools as well. So yeah, it's a little bit of a mix.
That's amazing, though. I think that especially getting some government support, and I guess some government, it's sort of they're raising their awareness by watching what you guys have been able to create and other organizations in Australia have been able to produce to say, we need to latch onto this and, and help out, and we'll sort of work together, which, is only going to bring us more positive results, which is great.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to take, everyone. I think it's been good to see government at state and federal levels focus more on mental health. There's always more to be done, but I think we kind of need to sometimes stop and reflect on how far things have come and the focus that's now being given. And so, we've talked about community, we've talked about schools, we've talked about government, we've talked about organisations like ours, and we're not the only one. We've talked about service providers. There's a lot of moving pieces, all with a really important role to play. And I think everyone coming together and working out how we can do things together and better communicate how we're all trying to solve the same problem is really the best way forward.
100%. And I think, at the start of this, I'm like, I'm going to run out of guests. And then I go, there's just so many services now. And there's, so many people, working for, a similar goal with different, networks of people and different types of community. But it's endless now, which is so great. And I think you're so right. I think we do spend a lot of time on what's left to do, which there is a lot, but we've come a very, very, very long way in terms of our awareness, our community's understanding, and just people getting well as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, Nick, I can talk to you all day about this stuff. You are the CEO, though. You probably have other things to do.
No, good. I love it. It's been good.
We'll wind down a little bit. I ask everybody this question. What works for you? What is non-negotiable in terms of your self-care? Like how do you feel your cup back up?
Yeah. It's hard. I get this question a lot, and it's hard not to go to the classic answers. But in saying that, I think they're classic answers for a reason.
Yep.
And so I live on eastern suburbs of Sydney, which, I'm really lucky to be near the beach. I've always grown up on the beach. So that's a really important thing to me. I think I've realized in different places that I've lived, being near water for some reason is just calming for me. And so a run along the headlands at the beach, or whether it's a river or a harbour or a dam or a lake or whatever, wherever I am, I'm kind of trying to just look for some water. And that for some reason really helps, accompanied with exercise. So whether I'm just sitting there and watching the water quietly or listening to music or going for a run alongside it or a walk, that's a really, really important one for me. And then chilling in front of the TV. My role at the moment is, there's a lot of, I feel like I'm making a lot of decisions all of the time, and trying to consider a lot of people's thoughts and feelings, and trying to take the organization in the right direction and trying to impact people in a positive way. And so sometimes I just need to switch off and turn in some rubbish television show on, laying on the couch is actually another really good one for me. Just try and not do too much of it, but I like it. So
probably leads into my next question, but the books that I like to read are all about trauma and counseling, and that's not really self-care because it's still work. So I agree. I'd love the bit of the downtime, and there is something about the ocean that's definitely one of mine too. Just being with it. For those watching the video, you have the coolest, is it a koala chucking up in shutters with the surfboard?
That's Kenny. It's a Mulga. It's a Mulga artwork. I don't know if you know Mulga, but he's does some good stuff, so you can check him out. But that's Kenny the koala, the surfer.
And so do you surf as well, Nick?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Grew up surfing, grew up by the beach. So that's a really, and it's another one that I kind of love to do. Just get out in the ocean and get a couple of waves. It's a bit more hectic in Sydney though. I'm not as used to it as up the coast. You're out there with 5 or so blokes when you're up the coast, or women or whoever it might be. But here in Sydney, it's just like thousands of people. So it's a bit more of a, you got to fight for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a bit of a fight for the waves and stuff. Yeah, fair enough. So tell me, what would a go-to book be for you, do you think, Nick? And that obviously that can be something that's been inspirational for you, something that's sort of, guided some of the work that you do, or just something that's empowering for others?
Yeah. So I read somewhere that really good CEOs read something like 52 books a year or more.
I saw that.
Yeah, and I that's not me. I'm not much of a reader, so I'll read. I mix it up between fiction and non-fiction, but really what I've been doing is audio books and podcasts. So I love this sort of stuff because it means I can be out on a walk or a run and just listening to podcasts. So there's been a few that that I really enjoy. So a couple of the ones around startups and driving kind of innovation and growth is something that really excites me and I find interesting. For some reason, we don't see it as much in the not-for-profit sector, and it's something that I think we could do more of as a sector. It's more and more of a conversation, but I think more could be done around that. So that sort of stuff is really interesting to me. And then just people that I really respect on podcasts that I just love to listen to and learn from. Brene Brown's recently done released a new podcast, and I've been listening to some of that recently. So yeah, I'd probably lean more towards audiobooks and podcasts than reading, but I try and do a bit of reading because I know it's a good thing to get into. I've just never been much of a reader.
You meant to doing 52, one a week.
I know.
An ebook and a podcast surely got to start to count.
Does that count?
It's 2020. That's got to count.
Surely. I'll get a few books in there amongst the audiobooks and podcasts.
Well, I mean, in terms of CEOs, you've done way more than 52 podcasts. So you're doing pretty good.
Exactly. I'm well above your Steve Jobs or whoever it might be, Bill Gates.
Well above. That's it.
Yeah, well above.
So funny. So, what's going on but shit. I knew it was coming up. Batyr. What's going on for Batyr at the moment? And there's so much, but what's some of the things?
Yeah, I guess the big one for us is we've been reflecting on. So this year's a bit of a different one, but it is across the board. So we can just we're doing what we can to have an impact, to reach young people in new and different ways. And we've learned a lot about it. Some of it will keep as things start to unwind, and some of it, was serving us for this period. But normally, or last year, we reached 50,000 young people through our programs, and so we'll continue to do that, adapt and change the way that we deliver our program to have the most amount of impact possible. We'll continue to train people to share their experiences and provide opportunities for them to share their insights and to share their stories on different platforms, whether that's in our programs or elsewhere. But something we've been reflecting on is the role that we can play in learning from that mass diverse group of young people that we work with every year. So we're going to be building out a bit of a ability to better capture insights and information from young people, get their thoughts on things when it comes to mental health and services, and create ways to share that with policymakers, service providers, researchers, whoever it might be that's interested in hearing from these young people, because we have this unique platform to be in front of that many young people, and we just want to better give them a platform to kind of amplify those voices and amplify those experiences. So we're working on that now, building out that capacity and function for us to do more of that work within the organisation, and that'll be a big focus for us moving forward.
I think you're so right. You guys are so unique, and whatever you're doing is working. I think you're targeting young people, and I think now it's just the social media and I guess just with even COVID and people being a lot more tech savvy is, that's where we're finding people are getting the most information from, and you guys are really doing that really well. I'll put a couple of those links on my website as well, for anyone that's interested that wants to check that out. And I think there's a couple of fundraisers that you're running as well. So yeah, and I really need to get one of those jumpers. That looks really comfy.
Yeah, a couple of you have said that. I think only the staff have got these at the moment, but we might have to pop a few on the website.
Well, yeah, I mean, that'd be good. I'm getting a collection of all the non-for-profits that I talk to, so I can have one for everything. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's a go.
All right, man. Well, this has been an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on the podcast. And yeah, I'm so keen to see what you guys keep coming up with. And yeah, just a big thanks for spending this time with me, Nick.
No, same to you, mate. And keep up the good work. It's important conversations to be having, and making the most of a tough time, reaching lots of people. So yeah, no, good on you. It's been good to chat.
Thanks, Nick.
Do you want to find out more about how therapy can help you kick some goals? Go check out findreasontherapy.com.au or the Find Reason Therapy Instagram page.